Meeting to order. Before we get into introductions and public comment and all that, just let me explain. We've got a somewhat complicated situation in that various advertisements of what's going to take place tonight advertise different times for different things. So we've got a scheduled UD3 meeting at 6 p.m., which we are now starting. It was also on the informational flyer that went out that said that basically 6 p.m. was a good time to come and talk about unification and Act 46. So those two are a little bit in conflict, especially since the majority of our meeting needs to take place in executive session. So here's what we're going to do, and for anybody who's here for that reason, to let you know. We're going to take care of some business in public. Then we're going to have our executive session elsewhere in the conference room for the administration. And anybody who is here to discuss unification and Act 46, Ruth Hardy and Peter Burrows will both be here during that. We will then come back for the UD3 annual meeting at 6:30 and do our annual meeting and our budget hearing. That'll probably take a half an hour, and then we'll move into the other advertised time for the unification and Act 46 conversation, probably about 7, and we'll have a further discussion at that point. Any questions on that for anybody?
Clear as mud.
All right.
And you may need, depending on how long the executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
You may need to.
We may be going back into the UD3 meeting, not the annual meeting, at the conclusion of the UD3 annual meeting. And budget hearing.
Rats. I checked on bills.
So, why don't we, for our television viewing audience and for everybody here, we'll do a quick round of introductions. Lorraine, you got your mouth full, so why don't you go first?
Thank you.
How about I start? We'll go all the way around, then we'll hit Lorraine. I'm Mark Parent,
Right.
Middlebury.
All right.
I'm ready. Lorraine Morris, Middlebury.
Steve Orzek, Middlebury.
J.P. Reese, Middlebury.
Laura Lass, Salisbury.
Nick Colston, Shoreham.
Cherry Shed, Ripton.
Peter Burrows, Superintendent.
Peter Conlon from Cornwall.
Rick Scott, Bridport.
Devin McLaughlin, Middlebury.
Allison Stanger, Middlebury.
Scott Sevo, Middle School Assistant Principal.
Patrick Green, Middle School Principal.
Bill Lawson, High School Principal.
All right, well, I'm gonna amend my previous conversation, and I think we will just get through our public business before the UD3 annual meeting. And then in between, if we got some time to talk unification and Act 46, we'll do that. And we'll save our executive session till after all of that, because we've got a fair amount to discuss. So on our agenda, the number 3 item is the executive session. That'll be put down at the bottom. Any comments, questions on UD3 business from you folks attending? Okay, great, thank you. Let's move on to approving the minutes of these last 3 various meetings that we had. About a motion to approve them.
Move.
All right. Lorraine.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, comments, questions about the minutes as we have them?
I was present at the January 5th meeting. I don't think I'm listed there. Just double checking. Anybody see me?
No.
Yeah.
There were so many of them.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, so my name should be added in.
all right. Who's doing minutes tonight? Mark?
I am.
Okay, you just sort of add that as a correction.
And that was January 5th, right?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes with that correction, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you very much. And so now we'll move on to more regular business bills. Is that you, Lorraine?
Unfortunately, Lorraine wasn't on the ball here, so can I come back to those after I get on the computer and verify all my numbers?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. We have a report of the principals. We received written reports, and does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to pose? Otherwise, we'll kind of cruise along.
I had a question about their attire. They're very well matched tonight.
I'm gonna mess it up.
I wore that shirt yesterday.
I thought we had uniforms.
Clearly you didn't get the memo, Peter.
Yeah. All right, well, there being none, we'll move on to the report of the superintendent. Action A is a member-to-member request. We often deal with these more in the fall. This is concerning hockey. I think Sean's going to provide the
Yep.
explanation here, and we'll listen to that and take action.
So, there's information on both sides. If we can just focus on the girls, member to member. This is to continue with the agreements that we've had in the past with Fairhaven. We have one student who is in her junior year this year, so this is a projection for next year for her to continue. Our in-district numbers are fairly low with 14, with projected of 5 coming in. And I just want to, with both of these, I just want to be clear, they're projections. There's not commitments. Kids tend to go off to either hockey academies or prep schools or enter, but we have some kids that may be in that realm that may move on to perceived as greener pastures. So we're looking at numbers of 19 next year. Again, continuing that member-to-member with Fairhaven. If you look to the 17-18 year, we have no projected member-to-members at this time. And I only project them if the schools or the parents have contacted the school about possibly entering into a member-to-member. So there could be something at some point. So our projected numbers are 21, and then we get into the 2018-2019 year, and we have a big drop because we have a large senior class the year before, and we're looking at having 12 athletes of our own, and then potential 2 athletes from Virgins into member-to-member. So that's just to give you kind of the background. Obviously, we'd only be voting on the 16-17 year as it is a one-year agreement in schools per the VPA policies. On the other side is the boys hockey program. First, I want to just remind people that member-to-member agreements have certain policies and rules that we have to follow. One of those is a no-cut policy. So we as a institution have a large number of kids returning, and by having a no-cut policy, what it does is we end up with some kids on our bench that don't get much playing time. So we've been examining that and say, how can we help these kids get development, game time development and all that? And Maha has been talking about creating a midget program, which is high school age up. We haven't had the numbers in the past to do that. And in order to support these kids who aren't getting a lot of playing time, we thought that this would be a great transition for them. The VPA does allow dual rostering now with a loyalty clause, which means if there's a high school practice or high school game, they're loyal to the high school, but then they have the ability to play on a Saturday or Sunday if the school isn't participating. There are 6 in-state midget programs and 3 New York teams, which are relatively close that they could be competing with. And like I said, Maha is behind this and wanting to create this. So I guess the question would be, then why do we need to do member-to-member with the additional 3? The first one at the top with Otter Valley is a continuation of a member-to-member with that athlete who's been here now 3 years, going into his 4th year. The addition of the 3 Virgins is what we're requesting. And the reason behind that is if we stayed with just our numbers, we wouldn't have quite enough for the midget program. And therefore, we're not providing that opportunity for our kids to get more quality ice time and play experience. And the reason we feel it's important to do it at that level is a lot of these kids aren't ready for high school hockey. Hockey is a unique sport which requires a certain skill set, and some of them had picked up hockey late in their career, so they're a first-year, second-year hockey player, and to go up the high school level is potentially dangerous. So we don't want to put them in a position where they could get injured. Even some of the kids that we have now may have only played in 2 games because that's the games we felt that they could do safely, depending on the level of competition we've gone against. And we already are in the lower division, so it's not like we can go down a division where we feel the competition is more applicable to these kids. So our thought process is to to take in those member-to-member, have enough for the midget, so all the kids are getting development. They will be practicing with the high school. They will be members of the high school team. We're not cutting anybody to the midget program. The midget kids can choose to not come to the high school. Just to give a little history, if you're a first-year Bantam and you're a ninth grader, you can choose to stay with MAHA and not come into the high school until you're a sophomore. And most kids will do that. This 12 represents all second-year Bantams, so their only option is to come into the high school. So again, to provide them something, because they can't go down to MAHA in the Bantams. But the maturity is we're trying to find these kids who are second year or Bantams or sophomore age, and hopefully the physical development or the hockey development is there. But again, safety is by far the most important thing for us, and we don't want to put kids in a situation where they're going to get themselves injured. So in a way, we need these member-to-member kids to give us enough players to allow that to happen. So.
One thing that Sean explained to me about this is the reason why we're doing this now and not in the fall is a lot of these kids from Virgins have indicated that if there's not a place for them in Middlebury, they'll go and join the Rice team. And therefore you lose them as a core to create this midget team through MAHA. Is that about right?
Correct. And these kids are all kids who've been growing up playing with our students since, there were squirts at 6, 7 years old. And they don't want to play for Rice. That's why they've contacted us. I was contacted by the Virgins AD, and the parents have contacted the school as well, because that is an option. It is the least favorable option as far as they're concerned. They want to play with the friends that they've developed over the years. And that's kind of the whole thing with having a youth program that is county-wide. It's not just a Middlebury, Middlebury town program. So. Yes.
Sean, did I understand correctly that the no-cut policy applies to the Middlebury students as well as the
Correct. I mean, it's really about the Middlebury students. So if you're bringing students from outside the district in, you can't then cut kids from your own district to make a room for them. And I've shared this plan with the VPA, Associate Director Bob Johnson, and explained to him our rationale, and he fully supports it as well.
Yes.
Sean, is there a cost to the district for participation in the MAHA program?
No. Any cost that would be from the MAHA program would have to fall on the families, just as they do going to youth hockey.
And I assume there's a very strong commitment from MAHA to create this midget program.
Yes, they actually had talked to us last year about doing it, and I met with Derek Bartlett, the boys coach, and just we didn't feel that they had the numbers, because as you see, an influx of 12 is big. And normally we're usually 6 to 7, maybe 8 kids. 12 is a large number. So Derek has coached throughout the youth program, so he knows all these kids coming up, and knew that this number was going to be hitting us this year. So this was the time to move forward with the midget program.
If I can just interject too, I'm Dee Dee Flaggen. I'm actually on the MAHA board as well. And I just want to reiterate that there's a huge commitment to growing the midget program. We did try to implement it last year. We kind of put it out there to get feedback and interest, but we've got a big focus on it this year to try and get that program growing, and this will help greatly.
Yes, Bill.
And just so your board members are aware that in a member-to-member agreement, the participating school pays, in this case, us a fee for the student. We base that fee on the cost of the program divided by the number of students in the program. So you're not necessarily shouldering the financial aspect of it.
All right, so I think that what we need is a motion to approve the member-to-member agreements for boys and girls hockey.
Second.
Laura moves that. You need a second?
Second.
All over the place. We'll give it to Devin since he's a hockey family.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of approving the member-to-member agreement with boys and girls hockey, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thanks very much. Thanks, Sean. Okay, our next action item is Section 1093 residency request. Don't know what this means, don't know what this is.
Okay, you will soon. So Title 16, Section 1093 allows the board to allow non-resident students to continue going to school at a ACSU school under kind of extenuating circumstances. The current situation, and we can go into executive session if we need to provide more information, but just a general overview. Student is a senior, family has moved away outside of the district, and we feel it's in the best interest of the student to stay here to continue final senior year here at MUHS. So we're requesting that the board approve that the student continue through the rest of this current academic year.
Tuition free. Right.
Yeah. Yep. We've already received, they've already been counted as ADM, so,
Got it.
you know, ostensibly, we've already gotten paid for the student, so it's not, we're not shouldering additional cost.
Everybody understand? Any questions? All right, how about a motion to approve the Section 1093 residency request?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Seconded by Laura. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody want to abstain? All right. Number 8 on our agenda is preparation for town meeting. Did you want to say something about this? Or was that just a placeholder?
That was just a
on all of-
placeholder,
All right,
yeah.
as a placeholder,
Yeah.
it's really more designed for the elementary school boards as we are having our town meeting tonight, basically.
Well, it's for the annual meeting for us here, so it's preparation for what's coming in 10 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I would encourage all of you to attend your local school meetings, especially to just sort of lend your voice and information that you have to the unification effort, and many of you are running to be on the unified board, so it'd be a good idea to be present. Okay, do we have any other business?
I think I can give you the bills now.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, on January 5th, that would have been JP and me. Food service, $25,000. General fund, $688,591.46. 19th would be me and Steve. Food service, $10,534.89. General fund, $1,011,000, $314.90. Then we move into February. Steve and I,
Date?
February 3rd.
February 2nd.
Second, sorry.
$20,000 food service. General fund, $687,926.19. And 16th. And then JP and I, general fund, $536,472.38.
No food service?
That's it? No.
Mark, you all set with the numbers?
I'll get
Okay.
the ones I missed.
I guess why don't we have a motion to approve the director's orders as Lorraine reported?
So moved.
Thank you, JP. Laura, second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody want to abstain? Thank you all very much. Just getting back to the issue of town meeting, please check with your elementary school board folks in terms of potentially helping out outside the polls, explaining to people who might have questions going in about the big ballot with all the names on it, as well as the unification article. And the elementary school board folks all have got these large blow-ups, but I think people are trying to take shifts to help explain outside the polls. So if you got some time, that'd be great. Talk with the chair of your local board.
And Peter, on that, those of us who are running for election on whose names are actually on that ballot probably should stay away from doing that.
I would.
I suppose, yes, unless you're
Yeah.
uncontested.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just looking for a reason not to have to say that.
Absolutely.
So if we're
Might be cold that
uncontested, we can.
Excuse me?
So if we're uncontested, we can.
Yeah, because there's no, you're not really politicking for
Okay,
yourself.
well, I'm fine if I can't, but I mean,
I know you
She's
are
trying to
looking
find a
for an
way out,
excuse.
yeah.
Peter,
Yes.
my understanding was that as long as you're 50 feet away from the polling place, you can be there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I just, if you're worried about a conflict of interest by
Okay.
being a candidate in a race, as well
I see.
as, the job is really just to answer questions, not to advocate or otherwise.
And Peter, in terms of educating us so we can educate others, that's going to be part of the Act 46 presentation on what that ballot means?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah, that'll go over after this.
thanks.
And, yeah, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to just simply suspend our meeting. We'll take 10 minutes, and then we'll open the UD3 annual meeting. And after that closes, we will reconvene in executive session to finish out our work tonight. Does that sound good to everybody?
Will we have time to, I mean, if we're going to start the annual meeting at 6:30, that the Act 46 may take longer than 10 minutes. Do we want to wait? We had initially kind of talked maybe about doing it after the annual meeting.
Yes.
To have more time for
No, that-
Act 46.
Yes, we're going to, yeah, we will.
Okay.
We may,
Okay.
this board may depart for the Act 46 portion of
Okay.
things and do our business. Yeah. Does that sound all right to everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So we will stand in recess, and I'll come back to the table here in 10 minutes to open the UD3 annual meeting.
Good evening, everyone. The legal voters of Union District 3 are hereby warned to meet at the Middlebury Union High School, Middlebury, Vermont, in said district on Tuesday, February 23rd at 2016 at 6:30 PM to transact and vote on the following business. Article 1, to elect the following officers. A moderator. Do I hear a nomination for moderator?
Moderator, the clerk of the works is not in here.
Oh,
We need to get her.
Okay.
So she can.
okay, it looks like the clerk has arrived. Nominations for moderator.
I nominate Dick Thibodeau.
Second.
Any other nominations? If there are no further nominations, those in favor of Dick Thibodeau for moderator, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have elected Dick Thibodeau as moderator. B, a treasurer. I hear nominations for a treasurer.
Jane Beck?
Second?
Jane Beck
I
has
hear her say
been,
no.
Jane Beck has been nominated as treasurer. Do I hear any other nominations? Those in favor of Jane Beck, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have elected Jane Beck as treasurer. Clerk, do I hear a nomination for clerk?
I nominate Linda Barrett.
I second.
Linda Barrett has been nominated for clerk. Any other nominations? Those in favor of Linda Barrett for clerk, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have elected Linda Barrett as clerk. Article 2, to hear and act upon the reports of the treasurer and auditors of Union District Number 3. What is your pleasure on Article 2?
Move to accept the report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the reports of the treasurer and auditor. Discussion on Article 2. Hearing no discussion, those in favor of accepting Article 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have passed Article 2. Article 3, to see if the voters of said Union District 3 will vote to authorize its Board of Directors under 16 VSA 562, Section 9, to borrow money by issuance of bonds or notes not in excess of anticipated revenue for the school year. What's your pleasure on Article 3?
Nominate, or I move to approve it. I'm sorry.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Article 3. Discussion on Article 3. Hearing no discussion. Those in favor of Article 3?
Aye.
Those opposed? You have passed Article 3. Article 4, to see if the voters of said Union District Number 3 will vote to authorize its Board of Directors to transfer $300,000 of the fiscal year 2015 unassigned fund balance, estimated at $606,286.47, to the Capital Reserve and Replacement Fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Article 4. Discussion on Article 4. Peter?
So I just want to talk a little bit about this. One, a slight typo in the parenthetical estimated at. That number should actually be 589,568. That was just a typo in a previous calculation, which if you want to see it, I can show it to you, but that's what the number is supposed to be. The $300,000 is for several items. First is some security improvements at both schools. At the high school, about $100,000 would go toward a panic lock system for the corridors and some additional camera coverage of the corridors. Let's see. Another $75,000 to $85,000 is to improve security at the middle school. The biggest part of this is creating a wall divider so that when you walk into the middle school, you can't just immediately walk in and have access to the entire building without having to stop at the office first. The way the middle school, for those of you who haven't walked in a while, is set up, basically you can kind of scoot by the office if you can get through the door. This wall would essentially force you to stop, check in, and then continue on through the school. Then the final portion of the money, about $80,000, is to finally replace the lockers, which was proposed in 1996 and cut during the renovations back then. These are in the boys' locker room and girls' locker room, if I think I have that correctly. The remainder, which is about $35,000 of these rough estimates, would be part of a contingency fund for all of the work.
Yes, Leonard.
What'd you do with the remainder $280-some thousand there, Peter?
The remainder is to taxes, to reduce taxes. The remaining $289,000.
It also acts to bring our per pupil cost down, which keeps us under the threshold set by the state.
Does that $300,000 go into that calculation for pupil cost?
It affects the per pupil. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Both ways, it increases it and then decreases it by the same money amount. For those of you who were here last year and approved the $400,000 in capital improvements, I encourage you to use the new restrooms outside the auditorium. See what your money bought you.
Further discussion on Article 4? If not, those in favor of Article 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You have adopted Article 4. Article 5, to do any other business proper to come before said meeting. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank you.
Presentation about the budget. Kind of go over things pretty quickly, go over a little bit of the finance page as well, and then really just open it up to questions as we move along here. And I guess in your annual report, if you have one, probably the best place to start would be page 5, which essentially sums up the proposed spending at the high school and middle school. So I think I'm characterizing this correctly. This is really kind of a no-change budget in the sense that programs were not eliminated, staff was not eliminated, programs were not added, really staff was not added in any significant numbers. It's really moving everything forward one step, yet still coming in at a 0.8% increase rather than a larger increase, and that's despite a 7.9% increase, I think, in healthcare costs. A lot of the savings, as you see here, was brought on by the fact that we had a large group of teachers retire at the end of last year. Many of them were at the top of the pay scale, and as they were replaced, generally they were replaced with people who were lower on the pay scale, younger teachers. Our goal as a board was that we wanted to remain within the state cost containment barriers in order to not face any penalties, while continuing to provide the same level of support and education that we have in years past. That's how we went into it. I think we fairly well achieved it. Here are a couple of grouped areas, salaries and benefits. And again, we've definitely benefited through a large group retiring. This kind of looks at the various categories within the budget, increases and decreases. After this little presentation, if you have specific questions about various changes, feel free to ask, and the administrators can probably tackle those better than I can. I'm sorry, I should point out the first one was high school, or yeah, must be the high school, middle school. I'm sorry, the first one was all of them, now we got the high school.
Peter, same thing in terms of personnel changes affecting both the high school and the middle school. You have veteran teachers retiring.
Really, in this past school year, at the end of the past school year, it was really a much larger group from the high school than from the middle school. You'll see a bit of an increase there under guidance. One of the only new positions being added is a I guess I don't know if refer to it as part-time, but a part-time in terms of months per year guidance assistance position. This kind of tracks the history over the various fiscal years. We've really tried to keep things as low as possible despite increasing costs due to contracted salary increases and mainly driven by salary and benefit increases. Oil has been a nice surprise, though. If you go to, I think it's in, let's see, page 20, it's what we call the financial page. The key element here is the bottom row of numbers. And after you do all the complicated state calculations, the estimated, and I really use the word estimated importantly here, but the estimated tax rate for house and 2 acres should go down 6%. There's a lot of numbers that the state's still calculating, especially the next line up from the bottom, estimated base homestead equalized tax rate. That number isn't really known until after the legislature gets done with its work, and it's usually up or down by a penny. But overall, we're looking at a decrease. This is largely due to a per pupil spending, holding the line on per pupil spending. Part of that was helped by the surplus that we just applied toward taxes as well. That's about what I have on this. For those of you who are wondering about the change on the warning, if you go on that finance page to the middle, it says fund balance carryover. The 589,569 figure is there under proposed, and that's the number that should have appeared on the warning. But if anybody has specific questions about various line items, it's a great time, and the administrators will be all set to answer. Yes.
Peter, first of all, I'd like to make a comment that this really looks like a very responsible budget, and I applaud you all for your hard work on this. I did have a couple of questions regarding some salary increases, and I think you mentioned about guidance, and I think I've read some stuff in the paper about hiring some guidance, but there was I'd like some clarification on, there's a clinician that was new in the budget under guidance. Could you explain that?
Sure. I'm going to turn it over to Bill Lawson, the high school principal, to answer that.
In the high school budget?
Yes.
Yes, so that's going to be a new position. We haven't exactly determined what we're going to call that position, but it's there for post-graduation, to help students with post-graduation planning.
I read your report, and there was mention of plans for students after graduation. It was a nice report. But this is to help students in that process.
We heard over the fall a concern expressed at several of the board meetings that felt that we could be doing more in terms of college planning, right. And so this position will be focused on that.
I think it's wonderful, so thank you for that. I just wanted to be sure. There was also on the middle school, there was also an increase in guidance, and is that a similar situation? Or?
No, it's a little bit of a different situation, and there's sort of a shift. So we have added some CSAC personnel within MOMS to try and help with some needs that students have had that we've really worked on in the past, but haven't really been able to meet their needs as well as we've wanted to. So we brought in a behavior interventionist, a board-certified behavior analyst, as well as a school-based clinician. So that team, those three folks, one of those positions is a full-time school year position. The other two are part-time. One's 1 day a week, the other's 2 days a week. And with some Medicaid offsetting funds, those three folks are roughly the same cost of a paraprofessional. So there's a reduction of one paraprofessional salary and 1% of the budget, and an increase of roughly the same amount of money in the guidance area that wasn't there before. So it had essentially a zero effect on the budget, but it shows up pretty significantly in guidance.
Great, thank you very much.
Chip.
I made the comment last year, and I make it again. Every year, and especially last year, since we had quite a few retiring senior faculty, we always use that as a way to help the budget. Because in fact, the assumption is that the expensive senior person is going to always be replaced with the much less expensive junior person. I just want to make the point that I hope we're always hiring the best people rather than just the junior person to replace that person. Since I know Middlebury is a good school, it's got great faculty, and it has for a long time, and because of our sort of stance or our position in the hierarchies of where you want to teach in Vermont, we have a good chance to get good people. So I just want to always make sure that I, as a public member, state that we want the best faculty, not the cheapest, and I just reiterate that particular thought, because it comes up every year. Last year in particular, because of the fact we had so many retiring faculty.
Yeah. I think it has come up frequently in the past few years, largely due to demographics, as we've seen sort of the older baby boomers retire in the numbers that they were expected to. That's where it's really come up. And I think this may be coming to an end.
It may be, but in fact, it's always utilized that we do benefit as public benefits tax-wise, because we don't have to support a higher paid teacher who may have been here for 25 or 30 years, which is fine. But in fact, if you're replacing that person, you want to replace them with the best person, not necessarily the person who is untested at that point.
Can I make a
Just
comment?
stating an opinion, not an argument.
Absolutely.
Can I make a comment on that? I have to applaud Mr. Lawson. He has done an excellent job in recruiting some really fine teachers. Some that I have worked with before, and I really have to say that he's done a very good job in his selection to pick some really excellent candidates.
I'm not making any judgment on particulars whatsoever. I'm just stating that, in fact, forever, this has been a way that we help the budget, is this whole process. And I think it's just important to always keep in mind, we want the best teachers that we can hire, period.
Any further comments or questions on the budget as proposed? Keith?
I just want to second that. Love it. Equalized pupils.
And actually, I have been neglectful in saying, please state your name and the town you're from.
I am Keith Greer from Bridgeport. The equalized pupils, my understanding is that they're weighted more for secondary students, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good. So starting there, I understand that. There is a decline. Do we have projection that in general this decline will continue?
That's a fairly safe assumption, although I know Mary Hogan has had an increase in student population this year that was unexpected. But generally, the high school itself has had a very gentle decline.
And at the middle school, I think we've seen the big drop in students, and we're more or less going to plateau for a little while, fluctuate a little bit here and there, but I don't anticipate another significant drop, just looking at the bodies in our current public schools in ACSU.
But decline nonetheless?
Kind of bouncing back and forth a little bit, not mostly plateauing.
I think that if you were to look at the numbers of kids in the elementary school system that feeds the middle school, that the indication would be decline, but there are other factors that play into it. We bring some kids over from the other side of the mountains. There's some kids who tuition in, et cetera.
Right now, our current 10th grade class is very large, and so yeah, we're gonna keep them here for 10 years. So I think when that class graduates, we will see a drop at UD3. That class, I think, has 40 kids. They're kind of 40 larger than our average size. So at the same time, I think as we continue to do the work that we're doing here, I see us attracting more families to this area, and I think that's being reflected in some places, and I think will continue.
And kudos to those of you who have kept your children here to have children of their own.
Or convince them to come back.
Yes, Ken.
Ken Perrine, Middlebury. This is not a budget question, but it is a question about the balance sheet, and I don't know if this is the proper time to bring this up.
Sure.
A clarification, I guess, of the item on the asset side of the balance sheet, long-term asset retirement of debt. I'm not used to seeing something like that on the asset side of the balance sheet. So is that really reflective of a fund of money that is there to pay down the bonds?
We don't have the benefit of having our business manager here with us tonight.
Yeah,
what page are we on?
This would be 23.
It's on 23.
I'm asking this question, but it's on page 23.
And which line were you looking at, Ken?
Well, they're not lines here. It's the under assets, long-term
About third
assets,
way down.
retirement of debt.
Got it.
It's $2,050,000. And that corresponds to the long-term liability of the bond bank.
Right.
And I'm just, if it's on the asset side of the balance sheet, it should reflect some tangible asset. And my question is there a reserve fund that has got $2 million in it? So what does it represent? And then if it doesn't really, if it's not there, why is it on the asset? Why is it recorded as an asset on the balance sheet?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that I believe that's where it has always been. I mean, I've seen it there before. But
Doesn't make sense
Yeah.
from a financial perspective
Right.
to have it there. So I'd love clarification on that. Doesn't have to happen tonight, but at
Okay.
some point.
Yeah. But then,
I
but,
can connect with you.
but no, there is not a $2 million fund sitting there.
That would be just a related question to that. This is as of July, or June 30th, 2015. And on the subsequent page, on page 25, we have a listing of the long-term debt. I'm just trying to get a handle on long-term debt here. And as of July 1st, 2016, it shows much less than $2,050,000. So I'm again wondering what's the correct number.
You have your homework.
Yes, I do.
Okay. I think you have my email, Peter.
I do, yeah. I believe, though, the long-term assets are reflected in that way due to bonding. I would think that there's a...
Just would be, I would love an explanation
Yeah.
why that's there.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really,
Okay.
you know, I know school accounting is very different from what I'm
Right.
used to. Would love to understand that a little bit.
Chip.
Just have one other question, I guess, and with the upcoming vote on the consolidation and unification of the district, in making up this budget relative to costs, I know we got some benefits from oil, and we got some benefits of retirement and things like that, health insurance went up, but it's a very minimal increase for sure, so I congratulate all of you in doing that. But was there any thought in mind that, in the background, that said, we're going to leave this to the next board, so to speak, to bring in any sort of new, I don't know what they would be, but changes in the educational components? I read Bill, I don't know if it was Bill's or yours, I remember it talked about back, maybe it was superintendent's report, baccalaureate, national baccalaureate, or other types of programs that may have some budgetary component in it.
Yeah.
But was that conscious, or it just sort of happened?
I think that work is happening whether we unify or not. So it's not timed to unification. I think unification enables us to move more quickly and together as one to really focus on that work and look at how it impacts all students. So I think unification really enables us to get that work done in a way that is most meaningful and I think quicker, really, in terms of taking action.
And the budgetary impact of that isn't great next year. We're still in the study and apply phase. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for your attention. The board has some work to do in executive session. We may step away, but for those of you who would like to continue the conversation on unification and Act 46, we have some folks sticking back to provide a presentation or conversation on this and really answer the questions that may be coming up. But if there's no other questions on the UD3 budget, we'll thank you all for your attendance and support.
Thank you.